anything. We might not even mic. We might not even worry with it. Seeing, like, hearing the mics on that professional show, I realize now that people complaining about my mic at all are just looking for a reason to dismiss my channel. They're just going around looking for reasons, desperate to find any kind of reason to reject the world around them. And I'm not trying to impress anybody with my. Hey, that has never been for you, bitch. I will. Yeah, dare me not to bust you right in the fucking head. Just because your mom has never been violent with you doesn't mean that I won't. I'll wear your ass for a rug. You keep it up. Yeah, bitch. I wonder. It's supposed to look a little Teen Wolf. Does it look too Teen Wolf?
No.
Doesn't look too obviously like I have shoulder pads.
No, because when you put that on, it'll be all right.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, plus if you use the lavaliers and you play the thing on YouTube, it'll drown it out.
Mm-hmm.
It'll cancel it out, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
You got this shit figured out, huh, baby?
Mm-hmm. I had to do it. I had to figure out how to do this when I was tying my scarf around my face in the winter in Zanesville. So you get it around like that. Pull this around my ears. Hello, Jax. Hello, YouTube. I am the Skin Shifter. And tonight, it's actually not tonight, this afternoon, really, I have a program planned for you. My producer and fiance and I are going to watch Phil Schneider, the purveyor, maybe is an interesting word to use there, of the Montauk Project, the discloser of the Montauk Project. And I've been talking with you guys on the channel about underground bases and secret military experiments, and that I'm not convinced that the government didn't experiment on me as a genius child. I'm not convinced it didn't happen. Schizophrenia runs in my family, and so I'm always being critical of whether I'm schizophrenic, whether I just imagined my childhood being as weird and terrible as it was, or whether it really happened. and you're gonna get to be a part of it. So this begins. It's a VHS. We're watching John Snyder, or Phil Schneider rather, give. John Snyder is the general manager of the Seahawks. We're gonna watch Phil Schneider here talk. This is a VHS that went missing evidently, but it begins with the Star Wars scroll. The late Phil Schneider, a retired by his choice U.S. government geologist, talks about his days building deep underground bases for the government, over 131 in the USA, 1 mile or more down. The involvement with alien and technology, samples of elements up to atomic number 140 are shown. The advanced stealth technology involves the use of alien metals. This video, made in Denver in November 1995, was lost until late August 1996 when it was recovered. This is the last known video made of Phil Schneider while he was still alive. He was terminated on or about 11 January 1996. Surviving is his former wife, Cynthia Schneider, and his 8-year-old daughter. May his message travel far to alert all Americans of the terrible dangers facing all of us.
Ooh.
Hopefully this is audible, because this is a public speaker.
I met Phil over the telephone approximately 3 years ago, and in person about 2 years ago. And during that period of time, I became very well acquainted with him. He was, at that time, still working for the government, and he didn't say much about what he did. But nonetheless, over a period of time, I became well acquainted with him. I found him to be a person of integrity and honesty. And about 1 year ago, he became totally fed up with the New World Order and the establishment. He thought he was working for the betterment of mankind and the work that he was doing as a geologist for our government.
I know somebody just like this. Description of Phil.
Found out that it could be and was actually anything but that.
I have known a lot of people just
So
like
his
this guy, Phil Schneider.
revelations became, in many respects, my revelations. And I urged him last winter and spring to go public and lecture. Finally got him out. He's given over 30 lectures to date, all very successful, very interesting. In fact, so successful there have been 13 attempts on his life since the beginning of the year, and he survived them all. All I can say is God must be protecting him because he has a message. So without further ado, I would like to introduce
I don't know how true that
Mr.
is.
Phil Schneider, and understand also everything is being recorded and the video and audio tapes will be available.
I know
later.
about
Please
Phil
give a warm
Schneider,
welcome
what's
to Phil
in
Schneider.
the public, and I don't want to spoil it by talking about it. I want to watch him talk and see what happens.
You wanted to see the complete?
Thanks, Al.
Yeah. Can you hear it okay?
I guess
yeah.
I can always start off
Start
by
to
saying,
hear everything,
let's sink ships. That's almost a pun anymore.
I don't know if I can run the. I know I can't run the audio through the TV unless we've got a Bluetooth. But where's that green speaker? This doesn't need to be here.
I'll take it.
Look what I found.
All right.
Hopefully this isn't dead.
Shouldn't be.
Now. That's a fun noise. If I press that, it should be in the thing mode, and then I should be able to. My name for some reason.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it named itself after me. Phone turned it interconnected to it the first time. I'm not embarrassed about that.
I love it.
No, you're embarrassed about that. Shit knows who's boss.
I'm Phil Schneider. I worked 17 years for the United States government as a geologist and aerospace engineer, as well as a structural engineer. I worked for such elusive and elusive occupations with Morrison Knudsen, Bechtel, Page and Page, Aerospatiale of France, and a host of other EG&G and a host of other Los Alamos Laboratory and these kind of things. But rather than bore you with all those statistics, I've got cooked up a real mixed bag here of different topics, and it's might be a little bit like brain overload, but I'll start from the beginning. Now, like I said, I worked 17 years, co-invented methods of shape charge blasting as well as laser rock deflagration, which means rock is literally melted or powdered by a special laser combination, and the residue of the rock underneath is applied as a coating, as a liquid coating, kind of like instant agate, if you could imagine a hunk of agate, which is a hard silica mineral, rock actually. But up here we have another topic. This is an area to where I worked. I worked 11 years of the 17 years at Groom Lake, S4, S2. It's in the Nellis Air Force Base area. In fact, Groom Lake is, I'll show you in the picture right here. It's right here. Groom Lake is quite the place. A lot of rumors and other kinds of things have come out of there. Of course, people have stood on the outside for years and wondered at what's been flying there. There's all kinds of things been flying. Let me give you a brief overview. Start in ancient history land here. Back in 1909, the U.S. cavalry was engaged in catching some banditos that had crossed over the Mexican border into a place called True to Consequences, New Mexico. And they went into a cave or a hideout and killed the so-called bandits, but what they found out they couldn't explain, and they were called horseshoe craft at that time, or horseshoe ships. There were UFOs, and they saw these, what they called demons, gray demons, little gray guys all around the place. That was in 1909. Now, in 1933, our government was actively engaged with the Europeans, mostly the French and the English, in special researches dealing with aerial phenomenon. And once again, the term flying saucer or flying disc didn't come about until much later, supposedly right around the mid-1940s. Anyway, the whole thing here is that also in 1946, I might want to add, we were engaged in atomic bomb testing and this kind of a like, and of course the area of Bikini Atoll. Some of the pictures are over here on the white board, showing with the actual language of both the U.S. Army and U.S. Navy archives. Anyway, these flying ships were seen as early as 1945, 46. Some of them were called Foo Fighters, and you name it. They were fully known about, maybe as early as 1935 or 36 by our U.S. Navy. And there was a shallow underwater base at Bikini Island, and that was probably the one reason why a number of atomic bombs were exploded in that area rather than other areas which they could have been even more remote out in the South Pacific. At Operation Crossroads. Well, Anyway, this all led up to later on, about 6-8 years later, 1954, during the Eisenhower administration, led to a interesting treaty called the Greada 1954 Treaty. It was the Alien-Human Treaty. And supposedly the aliens had come in and exchanged technology,
I never heard
and
any of this
they'd
before.
want to take an occasional human being and a few head of cows, and accurate books were supposedly to be kept, and all this kind of stuff. And of course, eventually all that broke down, and aliens are notorious for being liars, even greater liars than so-called, in quote, we humans are.
That's why they're not rebuttal
Alien
about it.
treaties are often just not even the pieces of paper they're written on, they're just really kind of worthless. Anyway, my work as a geologist in building underground military bases, some of which are over 2 miles underground. And I think when you listen to Al tonight, if you have a chance to listen to him, he will speak of, Al's actually been on some of the high-speed monorail subway cars, if you might want to call them, that link these bases together. Some of them are capable of riding on a cushion of air about 3/4 of an inch off a rail, better part of Mach 2. And he's actually been on one of these trains. I've only been in one of the tunnels and helped build some of the tunnels. Incidentally, I helped work on 13 deep underground military bases. Had hands-on experience. Notorious was the one in and around the Dulce, the southeastern and southwestern sides of Dulce, New Mexico, in the Los Alamos laboratory regions, where we built some hermetically sealed rooms that were very deep, going down over a mile. We also built additions onto Groom Lake and S2 and S4 complexes. There are a total of 9 underground. They're called DUMBs. Like, you can learn a lot from this dummy, but DUMB stands for Deep Underground Military Base. And or Deep Underground, DUM-2, for instance, is a submarine base, and I helped build a few of those too, which are off our continental shelves and then certain islands and out in the Atlantic and the Pacific in strategic locations. All this, I can hardly, in an hour's time, I can hardly squeeze all this in. So I'll be kind of rambling here if you just bear with me. The main topic of my discussion here is to link up basically what's going on with these deep underground military bases, what they're being used for, what is the present situation now being employed both by our federal government, which is slowly being phased out by the United Nations government, as well as the New World, end quote, the New World Order, which is an even higher entity, and who these higher entities are taking their orders from, and try and link up basically what's going on. A lot of us have been kept in the dark. We've been given, maybe most recently over here, photographs of an alien at Roswell. I'll just make a very brief statement about that. The photographs cannot stand up to a computer grain analysis test and therefore are retouched or faked. They're not real. The real one, the real photograph of the charred or dead alien that was, or one of the several that were autopsied, is over here, was given to me by a friend by the name of Skip Frombach of Seattle. And his father worked as one of the principal doctors. He was from Germany at the time, and worked on some of the autopsy material, from what I understand, along with other people. Anyway, you just can't believe everything, and that goes for me. You got to get out there and do your homework. Like I always say, you might
He's not lying.
don't put your spectacles on, you put your skepticals on.
I don't
You
believe
listen to
he's
me.
lying.
So if we can If we can have a show of hands here, how many people have heard about Roswell, New Mexico? Very good, almost all. And how many people have heard about the black helicopters and the other kinds
I
of
was
flying
followed by black
saucer type
helicopters for about a
equipments
year.
out at Groom Lake and other places? Very good. Well,
They're
this
real.
obviously is a
I
nice
can never get a
enlightened
picture of
audience.
one. Every time I bring my phone up, take a
Most
picture
of
of it,
you
it'll
have
zoom
probably
out of
seen
the
what a
frame.
black helicopter is, or maybe even gotten rare glimpses of an F-117A Black Jet, or Stealth, as they're often called, or a B-2 bomber, or B-1 bomber, or some of these other sophisticated aircraft that are now being touted as the new technology. Once again, where did we get this new technology?
1995.
Well, obviously, we've had a little hand in that. Our little alien so-called buddies, have kind of exchanged things, not without a great cost. The cost of which has been a lot of people have disappeared. Some, and I'll blow this statistic by you. There's, according to current FBI and Defense Intelligence Agency and CIA statistics, 100,000 children and 1 million adults disappear every year. And these are not kidnappings or murders or rapes or suicides or anything. Totally unaccounted for. And where are these people going to? Nobody knows. Maybe one of us in this room or somebody has encountered such an individual and lost a loved one or a friend or something, and that's unfortunate. My best friend, Ron Lee Rummel, several years ago got himself murdered because we dared to put out in print, at that time I was still working for the government, and so was he, we dared to put in print the so-called the Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, as part of the New World Order and takes its actions. It was originally written as a kind of a spoof or a joke. We had one of these alien greys dressed up and had New World Order insignia on it. And of course, that wasn't taken very nicely, and my friend got himself murdered. It was called a suicide, but now it's been turned over to special authorities who now acknowledge it was a homicide. Other than that,
He's really
I'd like to also mention something about my father. My father was a U-boat captain in Hitler's Navy, and he got captured and taken over. I didn't find this out until about 2 weeks before he died on his deathbed. He kind of told everybody in total shock. I was one of them. In fact, I didn't believe him. I thought he was kind of in delirium or something like that. And of course, other things have come up since. And so, anyway, he was captured by the French, turned over to the Third Army, the U.S. Third Army, and then U.S. Third Army turned him over to the Navy. And he was a master machinist. Now, it's not a journeyman. A master means they can take a block of metal and make a gun or a watch or some other fine instrument. And he was a master machinist. He later became an MD doctor and part of the aerospace medicine group of the United States Navy. Was instrumental in helping build the USS Nautilus and its first nuclear-powered predecessor, the Enterprise, first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, and other ships like it. He pioneered all the ways in building very small and miniature nuclear engines, and he even helped work later on in his life. He helped develop the infamous grid bed nuclear motor, which is now employed in some things that look like flying saucers that people claim are flying saucers. Yes, we, in quote, the United States Air Force and other armed forces, are training other European forces to fly unidentified, or now identified, or, in quote, flying saucers. We've actually built several prototypes that are flying under names of black craft. My position as a geologist and engineer got me to see a lot of things in the world. I've been in over 70 countries. Also worked for NATO. I carried a level 3 security clearance with a rhyolite factor. Rhyolite is a hardening factor, only given out to a handful of civilians and maybe a couple of hundred military men worldwide. I thought I was doing the nation, the United States, as well as the world a favor by, I thought I was kind of keeping my end up. Well, it didn't work out that way. I was to later find out that these underground bases are now being employed as strategic bases for, in case there is martial law in this country. Right now, our military professors that used to be in war colleges and the like are training people like ex-Russian KGB and Spetsnaz people right here on American soil. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, along with other people, other geologists. By the way, I'm still a geologist, still do geological survey work. However, I don't work for the government anymore. I took my security clearance and all my government stuff and cut it up and sent it back to the, pardon my French, SOBs. When I found out that a number of these 131 deep underground military bases are being used to subvert the Constitution of these United States and its people, I says, that is enough. I can't possibly be connected. Oh, well, Mr. Schneider, you can't quit, they said. Well, I says, yes, I can. I'm an individual, I'm going to quit, and I'm walking off the job. And he says, so I got arrested and casually told, well, you got to finish a job. And so I caved into that part, and I finished 3 weeks, and then at that time my father was dying, and I was allowed home, and I never went back for my paychecks. Don't intend to either. These people are beginning to show signs of being our utmost enemy. I'm talking about military people now engaged in training foreign troops on American soil, clearly against
1995.
the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution.
You might be a lunatic.
It's why we formed a government, why our forefathers formed a government, a republic of these United States in the first place, way back 200 plus years ago.
That argument when he said I quit
Because
and then they
the
made
drawing
me
and
cave,
quartering
that
of
seemed like that really
soldiers,
happened. His head
taxation
got,
without
his neck
representation,
didn't fit in his shirt
law
anymore
by
during that.
edict,
I believe him.
otherwise known as today's version, executive order, among other things. The very reasons that we became, in quote, free, a free republic, a free society, possibly one of the greatest nations to ever be a nation on this earth, were instilled in our founding fathers that are now so far away from the people now running our federal government structure. So I'm here today to touch upon a number of subjects. One being that these underground bases are roughly over 3 of them per state. There's now, instead of 12 prison camps, there's 39. That's almost 1 per state. They're building 2 prison camps every 7 months. They're building 2 underground military bases every year. Each one of these military bases, by the way, these underground military bases, they cost somewhere between $17 and $26 billion. They employ 1,800 to 10,000 workers each in varying grades of skill. They gobble up totally through the black budget, over 1/4 of the black budget, or roughly $310 billion. Of course, you may say, where are these figures coming from? Well, the black budget, as we know it, in quote, black projects, which anything called black is significant of hidden from Congress, hidden from the American people, and very few people are even in the know about it at all. But black budget per year garners over $500 billion a year. And it's these kind of huge quantities and sums of monies are garnered through CIA drug activity, National Security Agency
This is not the only person I've
clandestine
ever heard this. So he's
operations,
either repeating
mostly
something
in
that he
Panama
heard,
and South
or
America.
he knows what he's talking about. This is true.
Now also engaged in Russia in bringing and refining strategic metals.
We know
By the
this
way, you
now.
might want to ask,
Bringing and refining
where's all
strategic
these
metals, that's what the
kind of
Rand
interesting
crisis is about.
new metals coming from?
Where are these
Over
new
here on
metals
the
coming
whiteboard, we have the new periodic table. It's got 140 elements.
from? In 1995, that's a good question. In 1995, where are all of these new metals coming from? Where are they being mass produced? Is a good question. We now know it wasn't spooky weirdness. It was just, like he's saying, top secret, black budgeted government operations. And those government operations can be at the local level. So, like, the real reason that AI uses too much water and it's a problem is because the companies that are doing the AI, they're cooling their servers by running water through it. They're not collecting the steam off. And it has to be refined water that doesn't have minerals in it, because the minerals will accrete. It'll cool, but they'll also accrete all this mineral. So it has to be refined, clean water, which means that they're actually burning up drinking water. That's the problem.
There is a problem.
Right. They're on city and town grids. They need to be on their own grids. But it costs somewhere in the nature of $5 to $10 billion to build your own water refinement plant. And so they've skipped all of that and they're going to building their own microatomic plants. So they should have done in the beginning. That should have been available to them in the beginning. So his question of where is all this money coming from? Where are these technologies coming from? How are they going into mass production before we've ever heard of them? And how do people like me, who are connected to the peer review, not know about it?
Mm-hmm.
These are good questions that 31 years later, we have the answers to, but we are still downstream of those questions with bad and inadequate answers. We are still, he's asking, where's all this cobalt coming from? The rare earth minerals that we're arguing about for technology that the Democrats had been choking off mining in the United States so that we could keep Russia afloat, and exactly the way that he started talking about, that we started capitulating to Russia in the 90s and keeping their economy afloat, what he's talking about, that's real.
Yeah.
31 years downstream, we just unelected a Democrat majority government that were doing that exact thing in public, selling the Russians bombs to use against the Ukrainians, our allies. The exact nonsense he's talking about was happening when Clinton was in president, because Clinton was the spearhead of doing it in public. I've been saying this for a minute. So I don't know his statistics. I don't know whether his numbers are real. But we're 31 years in the future, and everything that he's warning about, you can call it New World Order, you can call it, you can wrap yourself up in the skepticism of just not believing that the organizations by the names that he's using are real. Fine. But everything that he's warning us about came to pass. Who else remembers how freaked out the U.S. was to learn about Guantanamo Bay?
Yeah.
Oh, you're telling me that there are actually prison camps? Yes. There are still military prison camps in the United States. He's not full of shit. And like I keep talking about, the Patriot Act seems like it's just politics, but they were warning us that the Patriot Act and militarizing, or rather using the military establishment to penalize American citizens was coming, because people like him are the same kind of people who are conservatives. They care deeply about people, like I said last night, who do not live in the United States because they are protected by the American Bill of Rights. And he realized the same thing that one of my friends realized, that his genius was being bent toward the mind control of not just third world people. You can talk yourself into that it's better for them that the Americans are mind controlling them than their bloodthirsty, evil volcano gods. But when it turns out that you're also mind controlling people in bumfuck nowhere, Kentucky, so that people in Rochester, New York will be more easily mind controlled, now you're talking about a real problem. And we are 31 years downstream of him, and he is right. We are now in public, in politics, voting about the things. Look at how freaked out and angry he really is.
I never seen a man that age that scared.
He is terrified.
Yeah.
He is telling us goodbye. They are gonna get me. I'm freaked out watching this. This is powerful.
Yeah.
Even if it's bullshit, the things that he's talking about, we are still arguing about.
High schools of today, I was in a high school about a week ago. I saw a new periodic table, had 105 elements. Now somewhere, we're not being told the truth. We're being lied to at every turn and every corner.
This is what I'm always talking about. We are deliberately misinforming our children so that there is a class and information divide in this country. His father was a military man. He's a geologist because his father was an engineer and a genius. He didn't know how stupid and uneducated and ignorant the average American was until he goes into a high school and he looks at their educational material and he goes, no, we have manufactured at least 36 other elements since this table was drawn. These kids are being left in a pre-20th century past deliberately. I think it happened. We're watching this because I think the things that he's going to warn us about happened to me, and they're why I'm so weird. Because I noticed them and other people didn't.
Considered less than morons. So the government has made itself an entity, an independent taxing body, an entity into itself.
This is why my friend Eric is so
isn't
worried about
accountable to
taxes.
anybody. Not even the so-called New World Order. They just go ahead and do everything willy-nilly as they please.
Because the money's
There's
not
nobody
real.
checking. You don't have to worry about this. Occasionally there's a senator who pokes a nose in here and there, and that senator finds out.
Rachel and I were talking about this just today on the live earlier. We were talking about this. She asked me, why don't they do this blank thing? And I said, well, they do. There are people who are responsible for it. We just have to trust that they're good people. Do you remember me saying that?
Yeah.
And he's saying that many of them aren't even human, let alone good people. We need to be concerned about that because ancient governments were concerned that there were people in their government who weren't human. One of the popes, I read the story for you on the channel. Go find it. You can't. Pope Gregory tells the story about how he himself was visited by a bishop in the church hierarchy who was an active church father who was a ghost. It freaked him out, but it reinforced that God is doing the work. Right? That God is keeping these ghosts that are pinnacles of human society alive so that the memory doesn't die with their body. Okay, that's fine. Still freaky. And if you're this guy, and it turns out that those ghosts are also goblins, think about D&D. Think about World of Warcraft. The orcs were not the good guys. The humans who worked with the orcs, for any reason, were the bad guys. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This guy is in a Cold War environment. Look at how old he is. You can't see him. I'm talking directly to Rachel. Yeah. He's 65. whatever. This guy lived in a different time when the war was real and his father was fighting it when he was a little boy.
Yeah.
My father had just got out of the war when I was a little boy. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The first 4 years of my life, my father was fighting the wars that led up to the Gulf War. Rachel and I were talking about this earlier today. The Gulf War is the war where the government finally got busted doing this stuff with depleted uranium rounds.
Yep.
1995, he disappears and he dies in 1996, and they think he was assassinated, and he probably was. But what was I going to say? 1995, 1996 is the perfect time for this because that was when Clinton was trying to get reelected.
Yeah.
Remember the 2000 election was Bush and Gore. 1992 was Clinton and Bush. Senior. 1996 was re-election against somebody who was never going to win as the Republican, and Ross Perot. Ross Perot was running on a campaign of economic and military frugality and intelligence, being smart with our choices and our money. And he's standing up here, my dad, the military guys all voted Ross Perot. He's standing up here saying we are being insane in the way we're fighting this war. Who are we fighting it against? And who the hell are we fighting it for? It's the same question that makes the alternative historians and archaeologists go insane. It's the same question that might have made me crazy. Who are the Egyptians building this stuff for? Now, we have the answers downstream. The consensus answer is probably the correct one. We're building it because, like I said, we needed, was it Argentina that we took out? Venezuela. We needed Venezuela because we needed the horn. Rachel and I were watching these whalers, the story that informed Moby Dick today. And the Panama Canal is great because you can get to the Pacific without having to go around the horn of, not Horn of Africa, but the horn of the bottom of South America, whatever that's called, without having to go down around that. But Russia can go down around that because we're only defending the canal, and they can fuck us up right at Virginia if they choose to. So we have Venezuela. Venezuela's happy because they don't have a dictator anymore, and now we have a naval presence down there at that shore. That makes sense. Having the sub bases off of the continental shelves and having these deep military underground bases when you're thinking about nuclear holocaust is imminent, that makes sense in the 60s. And look at his face. That's what he's saying. This doesn't make sense in the 90s. It doesn't make sense anymore, guys. It stopped making sense. None of this makes sense. We're preparing for a war that doesn't make sense to be coming. That's where we're watching this, because this is where three-body problem began. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Either
This was real
nicely
hysteria
or not so
in the 90s.
nicely, that you don't do things like that. No. If we're to gain a grip on our country, if we're to take our country back, we must first ask our public officials if they cannot tell us the truth, and we will impeach them, or they will be impeached, or they'll be tried as traitors.
They won't be reelected. It should be that simple. Tell us the truth, we don't re-elect you.
Slowly beginning to trickle out and to occur to a number of people.
And that worked for a little while. This is how Trump got elected. He ran on a campaign of this, actually,
George Washington, Patrick
That's how he got
Henry,
elected both
A few of
times.
the other ones came up and said that you don't want to let the beast out of the box. And they were talking about a runaway government. You don't want to...
But look at what happened when Trump did actually let the beast out of the box. He started defending America in a way that makes sense. That somebody like me, who grew up with saying that the things that we're doing in the 90s and before that don't make fucking sense. My dad dropped out of the military because they didn't make sense. Not because he didn't want to blow people up with grenades, right? It had nothing to do with not wanting to kill people. It had absolutely everything to do with, it doesn't make sense that I'm killing Hondurans to keep Americans safe. This isn't making Americans safe. This is killing American boys. What are we doing?
Yep.
It doesn't make sense from the inside.
Yeah.
But Trump came and got elected on this platform, what this guy's saying, this same, you guys call him crazy for it, this same radical thinking that this guy uses, and look at how stable America is actually. There hasn't been a riot in years. There hasn't been a market crash. Food is actually affordable. Since he got elected, the price of cigarettes and the price of fast food did go down. Gas is stable. We're still complaining about the same things we did before because it takes time for things to meaningfully get better, but things are better, right? And all he did was run on a platform of making sense in the way that Ross Perot and this crowd of intelligent, hardworking, knowledgeable people were insisting on when Trump was a young enough man to be confused by the Democrat worldview.
Yeah.
Trump's his age now.
Allow your government to become like England.
What do you hear me say all the time?
And so they warned us about this very same kind of thing. First of all, the United States is not a democracy.
Thank you.
It's not a republic anymore. It should be a republic. That's
Yes.
to the republic for which it stands, one
Correct.
nation under God.
Correct.
Why we can't even pray in the public schools anymore. We have to have a Supreme Court judge or group of them, plus Janet Reno and company, among other things, telling us what to do.
Yes.
Interpret for us as if we
Yes.
cannot read with our own two eyes.
This is why I get so mad at the liberal worldview. Like I can't read. Like I can't read. I grew up listening to these dudes, and I still think he's right. I don't think he's insane. He's clearly seen some shit that he just can't fucking swallow anymore.
Yep.
Understand with our mind. This, of course, is bad policy all the way around. And I guess I don't need to blow that by your ears.
Look
on
at him
another
try it so
subject, I
hard
have a
not
number
to.
of items.
I love this guy. I love this guy. He is trying so hard not to stump speech.
Yeah.
Because he knows that if he talks about this enough, he needs to run for office. That's the same conclusion that I came to when I was pushing this really hard on Twitter. I realized if I'm not running for office, I'm kind of wasting your time talking about it.
Up here at the table, one of which here is
The shadow on his face is uncanny.
if I can show it, is a heavy hunk of rock indeed. It has a weight of about a little bit more than a pound, 2.5 times the weight of uranium. It's not radioactive, can never be made radioactive. It's composed of earth, rare earth, clays, and powdered metals, as well as an alien element, mostly from crashed, retrieved flying saucers and those of the kind that have happenstance to crash in our deserts and backyards, so to speak. It's called mironite. Well, this is employed in every stealth aircraft, every black jet throughout the black budget. Also in the very small quantities in the skins of black helicopters. Mironite. Here's another thing. Here's a piece of probably the purest titanium you'll ever hear or see. It's so pure,
Very lightweight.
it's also composed with other alien elements to make it extremely tough. It's capable of withstanding temperatures in excess of 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Our new Phoenix-class submarines, of which we're building 2 a month.
That's another question I had. I had this question 20 years later, around 2015, when everything had titanium in it. Do you remember that? All of male, like every dude razor blade had titanium in it.
Yep.
I'm like, how the hell are we mass producing so much titanium? How? The temperature, 7,000 degrees just to melt it. How? Why? Why do we have so much of it that we're putting it in razor blades for men's faces that sit on shelves for years? His question and the things that I don't know whether there are actually extraterrestrial alloys in that, right? But the question that he brought up earlier does keep striking me. I did ask the same question in my life. How are these things suddenly so abundant?
Right.
Right now. Phoenix class submarines is a black budget program. Each one of those submarines costing $208 million just for the titanium hull, which is made of this material. Approximately 10,000 pounds of it. Now, we've got supposedly, as of the data right now,
so much.
we've got
Where are you
106 of
getting
these
it from?
submarines.
The
They're
planet's
flying the
bigger than I
waters and
realized.
the waves.
Damn.
They can dive to a depth of over 7,000 feet and hold that for 3 months. It's a fantastic submarine indeed. It has 11 grid-bed nuclear motors on it, engines that run everything, purify the air. By the way, these aren't your usual nuclear motor installation. They're very small. They're probably no bigger than this podium.
Yeah.
Weighing less than 3,000 pounds.
They just
putting out as much as the equivalent
said that these
of
were
3
real a few years
aircraft
ago.
carriers of the Enterprise
He's talking
class.
about real shit.
But these Phoenix class submarines are getting this metal. Now, where are we getting the metal? Well, it's being stockpiled in a number of strategic locations. Supposedly, I've heard stories, well, it's being mined on the moon, and I have no way of proving that, one way or another. I think we're probably getting it from Russia.
Yes.
Or
we've
refining
learned.
it in outer space. What are we shuttling? Basically a shuttle, a secret shuttle flight, one a week now is going up and back. What are they shuttling? Well, obviously they've got kind of their own little laboratories up there.
And then we
space
stopped
station,
doing
all
that,
this
and
kind of
they
stuff.
ended the space
Remember,
program,
what you're
and they
being
started
told is only
doing all their
just a smattering
flights
of the
via
truth.
Russia.
It's not the real truth.
It's a
Maybe
real
it's 5%
question.
of the truth. Maybe it's not even that. You can rest assured you're not getting much. Another strategic metal is this particular bar with some strange crystals on it, scalenohedral crystals of niobium, titanium, rhenium, copper oxide. This complex group of elements not found on the Earth in specific quantities. This was developed at Los Alamos through EG&G and other outfits. Are employed in all black jet aircraft, all of them, including the, in quote, sport model, the little flying saucer we occasionally see over at Groom Lake. And by the way now, if we happen to be with a video camera, taking pictures of the so-called area around Groom Lake, it's now, you can get your equipment confiscated, your car, your house. You're considered the same thing as a drug dealer, and you'll go to jail for up to 5 years and $1 million fine.
That's real.
I personally don't think this is what I'm hearing.
They made Area 51 not that
I just
anymore,
don't think
but they also
that
depopulated
this kind of punitiveness is what we need in America. We have to get rid of it, otherwise we're going to die with no America.
I agree with him.
Here's some other elements.
It's scary.
Here's a very light element. It's composed of lithium metal, as well as a alien element.
Lithium was the metal I was looking for. The rare earth element that we were getting from Russia, and he's right to be concerned about this, was lithium. That's what I was trying to remember. The Democrats, over the course of the 4 years before Trump, between Trump administrations, they shut down all lithium mining and refining in the U.S. because we thought we didn't have enough, and so we just buy it all from China and Russia. And it turns out that the U.S. is actually loaded with this shit. Our dirt has it in it. We figured out a way to refine it and recycle it. So we're going to be mass producing lithium. But his question of, in 1995, where the hell is the lithium for all these computers coming from? Is a question that I've been exploring for months on the channel. You've heard me talk about this so many times, because little bits filter out about where we are now as far as the information. But he's right to be skeptical
And
that
concerned.
and concerned that in the United States, a land where we do our science through Wall Street, where we do our tech development through public investors, and where we do our manufacturing research through private men in their garages on loans from big banks being monitored by local police, that there are so many billions of 1995 dollars that are outside of anybody's oversight. That's actually scary when you think about what did happen and how fast we became a surveillance state.
Yep.
How quickly surveillance technology went from not existing to just our present reality. How quickly in real time, actually.
Yeah.
It is scary.
We went from TomToms to GPS in our phone in like 5 years.
It was fast.
It was super fast.
Now, the reason the listen, consensus reality is going to say that the reason for that is because there was money in the economy that wanted it. And so there was a push in the private sector to get it out. And the reason that there was a push in the private sector is because the people in the private sector were aware of people like him, and they were saying we need to privatize this stuff so we can keep up with the government, so we can keep our lives. And it worked. Probably that's what happened, and probably they were right, and probably it did work. But it did come with a massive amount of the capitulation that he's warning about.
Yeah.
Capitulate too much, because these metals should be impossible at the amounts that we're generating. He said, look, I helped develop a technique that powders rock with lasers and turns it into agate. And I can't comprehend how they're making this at the scale they're making it. He's like, you need to understand that to you, it just sounds like a good thing, but I can't comprehend this. I'm an intelligent person who effectively invented a technology that does this, and I can't think of how they're doing it at this temperature. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. It's not possible, and it's not in the peer review.
Right.
It's not public how they're doing it. You should be worried that they have technologies that aren't public, because that's how you uprise. You go and you do a protest, and maybe one of you's got a gun, or maybe all of you've got guns, and suddenly they've got fucking evaporator rays where they point a thing at you and you're just dust now. He's like, I can do it to stone. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I understand why this guy's so afraid. Heavier than hydrogen, but a little lighter than helium, also employed in this. It's used in...
The reason it matters that it's a little bit heavier than hydrogen but lighter than helium is because that's what suns are made of. That's the basic building blocks. You shouldn't be able to build with those. And he's freaked out. He should be.
Yeah.
He's a structural engineer who can't figure out. Look at him. Look at it. He doesn't know what the hell he's looking at.
Puzzled.
He doesn't know what the hell he's looking at.
Yeah.
Secretive methods of propulsion. And it also is in a peculiar scalenohedral crystalline form. And anything scalenohedral, and by the way, a scalene triangle is no side is equal to another side. A scalenohedral metallic crystalline structure is definitely an alien element, or alien technology.
What he means by that is that it's not terrestrial, that it did not form in a terrestrial environment, that if it formed naturally, it did not form on Earth, and he doesn't believe that it formed naturally. So he's saying that something made this.
Right.
In the same way that you would look at a statue carved out of a rock and go, something made that. That's what he's identifying. I don't have his expertise. I just have to trust that he has the PhD in geology that he has, and that the very serious, and he is fucking scared. It's freaking me out how scared he is.
Yeah.
He needs you to believe and understand him, and he doesn't have time. You can see it on his face. I do not have time to explain to you how crystalline structures form. I don't have the time. It's going to take me an hour.
Right.
Convert it over to our own.
Was he labeled as a whistleblower?
No, he was labeled as a schizophrenic and a whack job.
But he's trying to be a whistleblower.
Yeah.
Technology. These were given to me about a year ago. They're called alien alien or aurora drops. It's supposedly the skins of the black jets, some of the ones that are coming in at very high rates of speed. They're still glowing red hot, white hot, and they'll sit out there and cool off, and they're dripping their material off of them. And it's kind of like a rubberized coating. It's not rubber, I can tell you that. This is hard as lava rock or
Yeah,
harder.
it sounds like lava
Capable
rock.
of withstanding tremendous temperatures, but nonetheless,
sounds like
some of it
glass
sloughs
on
off
glass.
every time, and so they
It
just kind of
absolutely
scoop it
was
up and
something
throw it
formed
in the
under
trash can there, a few
extreme
pieces
heat.
of it.
Sounds like marbles in there.
Here's one of the hardest so-called man-made rocks. Once again, it's got a number of alien counterpart. It's got an alien crystalline structure to it, very advanced. It's about 11 times harder than a diamond, about 70 times stronger than a diamond, capable of withstanding temperatures in excess of 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
To what end?
It is employed as very thin coatings or windows, tiny windows, in hypersonic aircraft that exceed Mach 5.
Right, for the torsion. What do you...
Here's an interesting artifact. Right here in this hunk of rock, which by the way was an old 100,000-year-old chipping tool found in Syria, Jordan rather, excuse me, is a imprint of, it looks like a fossil, but it's not. It's an imprint of a small mechanical part with exactly 360 kind of little rotor blades. Well, this rock is 220 million years old. Who was making machines 220 million years ago? Maybe Von Däniken was right after all, huh? Here we have a actual piece of agatized fruit, or
That
it's similar
could be
to a
easily
lime.
faked, but I don't
It's
have
even
an
been
answer for
pecked
it
by
other
a
than
bird
that.
at one time, and
That's
that's
not
still
satisfying.
there. So it's instantly turned to agate. It is the same agate or chemical structure as material found at Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the A bombings in World War
Yeah.
II, where grasses and flowers and petals of flowers and other kinds of things were instantly petrified, turned to agate. It is the same identical crystalline structure. However, this particular piece is about 20 million years old, and it's still got its original green coating, and it's basically unchanged, perfect condition.
How?
Likewise, here's a garlic plant about somewhere between 20 and 35 million years of age, and once again, it's got that same pink agate coating. And here are some pieces of the metal skin from the crash.
I've never heard of that. I need to... I only know the one way to ask this question. I just Google it. So I am going to ask Gemini that, but I had never heard of that. I've never heard anyone talk about the 20 million date is weird. Okay, it's 1995. Hi, Jar. And they don't know everything in geology yet. They haven't found everything. They don't have answers for everything. He's allowed to be like, I don't know what this is. It freaks me out.
Right.
He's allowed that. The short answer is yes, it's agatized. But no, it wasn't a nuclear explosion. What he was likely holding up was a spectacular example of pseudomorphing, specifically silicification or agatization, a perfectly natural, highly fascinating geological process that takes millions of years, absolutely no atomic bombs. What is agatization? Agatization is the specific type of petrification where organic material or pre-existing minerals are slowly replaced by chalcedony, a microcrystalline form of quartz. For this to happen naturally, you need a specific set of conditions: rapid burial, a silica-rich groundwater, and atom-by-atom replacement. Over millions of years, why it can't be. While nature can turn wood or bone into agate, an actual clove of culinary garlic, Allium sativum, surviving long enough to be agatized is practically impossible. Garlic is almost entirely water and volatile organic compounds with incredibly soft, delicate cell walls. The genus Allium certainly existed millions of years ago, but the specific cultivated garlic cloves we recognize today are the result of human agriculture. They frequently find quartz, agate, or chalcedony nodules that naturally weather into bizarre, uncanny shapes. And so an actual blast doesn't gently replace organic matter with quartz. It vaporizes organic material instantly and melts surrounding sand and rock. That's what I thought. It vaporizes it and it turns it into greenish radioactive glass. That's what I thought. He can be wrong about things and
Right.
still scared for his life.
I mean, it is 31 years ago.
And it's 31 years ago. And he was an old man. So like he said, this stuff boggles your ability to comprehend at all. And so all I have done is given myself the opportunity or the task of trying to comprehend these things that these people couldn't. Because I'm 30 years downstream.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? We live in the future. They died mad and overwhelmed by the data that they had stumbled upon.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to find a way to reconcile it. And so yeah, it doesn't make sense, but he wouldn't know this given his work in geology. Right, he wouldn't know that. Okay, yeah. So if we look strictly at mainstream geology and physics in 1995, the state of physics, his claims about what he's seeing, like I said, his claims are probably wrong. But I'm here to observe his mind
Right.
and whether the guy is trying to fucking lie to us. He's clearly not lying. He said that this stuff boggles his mind and he's here to make the information available because he doesn't understand. And you could see him handling these artifacts and going, I do not understand what I'm looking at or how it's possible, right? And so if he's looking at artifacts that were found in a geological layer from 20 million years ago, it doesn't have to be a nuclear war among gods because there were no human beings 20 million years ago. The planet did not look anything remotely like it does today 20 million years ago. And so these things could have naturally formed geologically, right? The things that he's holding. Well, the two that sent me here.
Yeah.
The two that sent me here. The things that he said, this is an organic thing that has been replaced with this process. And so in 1995, if we look strictly at the mainstream geology and physics of 1995, his claims don't hold up as a secret science. According to Gemini, they read more like a misunderstanding of how lasers and minerals interact, wrapped in a classic conspiracy narrative. That's what I kept thinking. It was only a few months ago that we smashed two 10, no, not 10, lead, smashed two lead atoms at high speed into one another to see what would happen. And what happened is the parts that hit actually collided turned into gold. So materials, when he's looking at these material sciences and going, okay, well, these laboratories have clearly figured out something that I can't understand. That's because we're still trying to figure out how they arrived at it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's impossible. And so, what would an academic geologist know in 1995? If he were an academic and not a working geologist, what would he know? What would an academic say to respond to him? That's what I want to know. How would an academic rebut the information that he's presented that is strictly in his wheelhouse, geology? An academic geologist in 1995 would absolutely know that instantaneous agitation via nuclear blast or lasers is impossible. By the mid-90s, the fields of mineralogy, sedimentology, and geochemistry were incredibly advanced. Geologists had spent decades studying the Trinity test site from 1945 and various underground nuclear test shafts in Nevada. They knew exactly what high-energy radiation and extreme thermal blasts did to rock. They created shocked quartz and glass, not microcrystalline agate. The slow, aqueous, water-based nature of agate formation wasn't a mystery or a theory with room for a 20 million year error. It was a well-proven chemical fact verified by laboratory replication and isotopic dating. An academic in 1995 would have immediately identified his garlic as a simple geode or nodule. 2. The lasers and maser rock particulation claim. Schneider claimed he helped invent a way to use lasers and masers, microwave amplification, to melt or particulate rock to dig deep underground tunnels, instantly turning the surrounding rock wall into a smooth, agitized lining. While that sounds high-tech, the physics of lasers and rock don't work that way. What happens when you hit rock with a high-powered laser? It melts or vaporizes. When molten rock cools incredibly fast, which it would if blasted by a laser beam, it doesn't have time to form the organized microscopic crystalline structure of agate. Instead, it forms an amorphous glass, essentially obsidian or a slag-like material. That's what I thought too. The structural flaw, even if you could somehow flash fry rock into a glass lining, a glass tunnel lining is incredibly brittle and structurally unstable under the immense tectonic pressures of the deep earth. Real-world boring machines use concrete or steel segments for a reason. 3. Was he concerned about his own limitations? In his lecture, Schneider doesn't frame his findings as a personal intellectual crisis or a realization that he was limited. Instead, he frames it through the classic lens of a whistleblower uncovering a grand cover-up. His narrative structure relies on a specific psychological pivot, the appeal to authority, and the paradigm shift. Schneider wasn't saying, wow, geology was wrong about 20 million years ago. He was saying the government is hiding the true history of the Earth, alien technology, and advanced physics. And I am the one of the few brave enough to reveal it. By claiming he invented a laser maser rock drill, he was positioning himself as an insider with access to black budget science that supposedly operated under completely different laws of physics than what was published in academic journals. It allows the speaker to dismiss any academic critique by simply saying, of course mainstream scientists say it's possible. They don't have the security clearance I had. So what I said is, how possible it is actually that Schneider believed he had invented this thing and he just never got to test it? I don't know the guy. Maybe his issue was that he couldn't comprehend the advancements happening around him because he didn't actually have access to the science. It is a question how so many advancements happened with no public records to explain their timelines. In 2026, it all makes sense. In 1995, I could understand thinking the world had no floor. And so she says that, I'm being empathetic with him. But in 1995, if we remember, the world did feel like it had no floor. We were standing at the edge of the internet age, the Cold War had just ended, and the public was suddenly learning about the existence of things like the SR-71 Blackbird, stealth technology, and massive underground complexes like NORAD, things that happened. But we came to this because Rachel's mind was blown by underground military bases. So he's not talking about things that aren't real, right? And so whether he's a whistleblower or he's just making this stuff up, I don't know. I find it interesting, but he is talking about real shit. And so, sure, he's got this 20 million year old rock. That's interesting. It's not relevant to his argument, but it's evidence that his mind can be blown by things in his own field because he spent so long doing things outside it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? When looking at Schneider through this lens, the tragedy of his narrative becomes clear. And it opens up two very plausible possibilities for how someone could end up believing they invented something they never actually tested. The Dunning-Kruger effect, that's what I was thinking, in the black box of the 90s tech. If you were an engineer or a technical worker in the 70s and 80s, you were trapped in a massive information bottleneck. You didn't have Google open source physics simulators or access to global research papers at the click of a button. That's exactly, I'm not going to read that whole thing. That was my exact thought, is that they picked him up on the idea because he and this other guy worked on this thing, and then the other guy got killed, and he just stayed in line for 20 years. And it makes sense to me because that's the exact backstory. That's the exact backstory. All of it's believable to me because this is the exact same backstory that the author of Confessions of an Economic Hitman claims of himself. And Gemini agrees with me. The narrative blueprint Schneider uses is almost identical to the one John Perkin lays out in Confessions of an Economic Hitman. It's the exact reason why these stories are so incredibly compelling. I agree. They're compelling. I went into this with Rachel. I may not have said it to any of you, but I went into this because it's compelling for world building and narrative development. Even if none of it's real, it's compelling to have in my brain so I can tell stories with it.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, the technical or scientific details probably completely fall apart. But the story works because of the corporate and government chameleons, the black box of advanced tech, the whistleblower's burden, and then the matrix of the 90s. In 1995, according to Gemini, the public was prime territory for this exact archetype. The gap between what the public knew and what the military-industrial complex was capable of felt wider than it ever had.
Yes.
It was the era of the X-Files. The cultural zeitgeist was entirely defined by the terrifying, intoxicating idea that the truth is out there, buried beneath layers of corporate subcontractors and black budget projects. When a guy stands up and says, I was the guy in the suit holding the clipboard while the floor of reality was being built in secret, it maps perfectly onto our deepest institutional cynicisms. I agree with her. Yep, John Perkins was a real chief economist, the author of Confessions of an Economic Hitman. He really did do the things that he said he did. And then she says that the James Bond, the former colleagues heavily dispute the theatrical James Bond style secret agent framing of his recruitment. His old boss famously noted that Perkins simply convinced himself a standard predatory corporate debt trap strategy was a literal NSA plot. The macroeconomic reality he described was completely real. That's what I'm saying. It kind of requires convincing yourself of insane shit to blow the whistle on the thing that's actually going wrong.
Right.
Because the thing that's actually going wrong, like Schneider said, the thing that's actually going wrong is so impossible to talk about that you almost need that greater conspiracy to compel you. You see what I'm saying? You need that fear. Okay, I'm ready to go. Oh, somebody else did a podcast about this exact thing. Oh, it was John Perkins with some guy named Shane Smith, whoever that is. This is what I should be doing. This, Shane Smith has questions. That's what my show should be. I should be sitting down with these people and asking them the questions that I'm asking of these videos, and then I end up asking of Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my show should be. So your subs, your likes make it one day more possible that I can talk to these people.
Disc at Roswell was given to me when I was 14 years old. My father was visiting one of his old friends in the Navy archives, as well as he was in the Royal Navy in England. And I, as a 14-year-old boy, I says, "Gee, Dad, can I ask Johnny something?" "Oh, go ahead. Nope. Get anything you can from him, you know, that kind of thing." This is one. "Gee, Johnny, well, do you think I can have a piece of this?" "No, oh, no, you can't have that." And I said, "Oh, give it to the kid. What the heck? He won't have it very long anyway." Well, I've had it all this time. It's kind of a unique thing. They were able to break the skin of that craft, by the way, by dropping it into a bath of liquid nitrogen, hitting it with a mechanical or hydraulic hammer, and it shattered into little bits. And it was later analyzed and adapted for our own technology. All these artifacts are fine, but once again, the main part of this talk is, where's it all leading to? We get very little spin-off to where any of this is leading to. Occasionally we'll get a new computer, or maybe a quartz watch, or some little trinket, kind of like giving the Indians beads a couple of hundred years ago. Well, we're getting these little spin-offs. But the black budget still rolls on, garnering up over $1 trillion every 2 years. It's somewhere between 1.023 trillion and 1.31 trillion dollars every 2 years. And every year it goes by and the black budget is unchecked, unaccounted for, it's just subverting our country. That's number one. Number two is that these underground military, first of all, if there was something like a nuclear war, or there was a definite enemy out there where we were going to be under attack, like from China or someplace like that, I could see maybe a couple of dozen underground bases for a government, and so it could theoretically rise up like the phoenix out of the ashes. Well, not 131 of these, and if you were going to so-called round people up and put them in prison camps, so what a better prison camp than underground, where nobody knows where it is anyway. So once again, these underground bases are most likely been planned as underground prison camps and slave labor factories for the New World Order. New World Order, by the way, is getting, and I'm probably the only person ever talking about this, the New World Order is taking, and the United Nations is taking its orders from, believe it or not, these more powerful outer space alien entities. You might call them the large grays or the small grays.
I don't know that I believe in the
sinister forces
intelligence.
indeed. And you might want to say, well, gee, how come we don't see more of this kind of thing? Well, you can just imagine. If you're only being told 5% or less of the truth, that isn't very much to go on.
Right.
That's one thing. Another thing is, you don't find very many people coming up here and letting you have hands-on experience. I'm going to try and do this to you. However, I do ask you to go out and do your homework and keep doing it. Don't necessarily believe in what I'm saying, but get out there and talk to people. Whether it's just a couple neighbors or friends or something, get out there and talk. Because one will tell two and two will tell four.
See, the thing that I noticed and why I am Skin Shifter in the way I am and why my show is what it is and it's not necessarily that I listened to and I believed all these guys, but I just took them on their challenge. They say, well, just talk to people and see what you learn. And I learned all kinds of freaky things, freaky stuff. You learn all kinds of weird and impossible things when you just ask people, hey, have you ever seen anything that you thought was weird and impossible? And people have seen something weird and impossible. Almost everyone has seen a ghost or something in the sky that they shouldn't have seen. They felt an anonymous earth or an anomalous earthquake that they shouldn't have. He's right about this. And there are actually really good reasons for all of it that don't have anything to do with conspiracies to control the planet. Because I actually think he's wrong. I actually don't think that the entities that we're engaged with, and I do think there are entities, I just don't think they're extraterrestrial intelligences in the way that we are terrestrial intelligences. I think they're extra human intelligences, and I think they like to eat us. I think they like to eat us. I think they think it's funny to lie to us. And I think that they manipulate us on purpose because it's funny to see human governments fail and sell their people down the river. And it's funny to see us not be able to accomplish things that we know are possible. I don't think it has anything at all to do with secret governments, because 31 years downstream, that was all obviously paranoid conspiracy talk. It was all paranoid conspiracy thinking. There is a very real war of good versus evil in any democratic or representational government, but the evil is with the liberals. It's not with aliens. It's real people who want to sell your children into human sacrifice.
And pretty soon you have a whole room full of people that are in the know. And then from there, wonders can work. Other than that, as far as changing the black budget and these clandestine programs, public opinion is only going to be that.
The
Going
current
to do that.
conservative
It's going to take
government is all
millions of
people
us.
who will run
But we
on
have to
this
be
platform.
informed. And to do that, we have to be doing what we're doing now, gathering and talking. And of course, most of us are adults and can weed out fact from fiction. Most of us are responsible adults and know the difference between fact and fiction and how to use it or how to abuse it. So
the difference between 1995 and 2026 is that 31 years downstream, a person in his 40s or his 60s speaking to a room of people in their 40s and 60s can no longer say that.
Right.
You can no longer say that we are reasonable adults, that we can reasonably parse out the truth from a lie, that we can reasonably be expected to understand the difference in fact and fiction. What makes us different from our very recent ancestors, only 2 generations of adults ago, what makes people my age group different from our grandparents in this exact same age in history, just 30 years ago, is that our grandparents could reasonably be expected to tell when someone was lying to them and deliberately misinforming them. But now the gap between what an average high schooler knows and what any professional knows is so wide that professional can tell the average high school graduate anything and expect to be believed. That's the difference. That really is the difference. That is what I've learned by just going online and doing conversations with people on YouTube for 2 years. You guys just don't know anything. You have a high school education from the 1890s. You can repeat things like evolution and special relativity. You can repeat it, but you don't understand it. You don't know it. You're like him, looking at these materials that exist and going, this exists, and I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't put myself in a paradigm where I understand how it exists. And that's okay. We were taught in school that makes you stupid, but we weren't taught that by our teachers. We were taught that by one another. And so just stop learning from one another. Stop Stop. We don't have people in our communities anymore who aren't me, frankly, who have tried to acquire wisdom so they could tell good stories for people to orient their lives around and learn in a meaningful way. That person doesn't exist anymore. And so people like him have to blow whistles. But he might be insane, and his science is wrong. That's the important thing. Their science always being wrong is problematic.
Well, he's doing the best that he can with the
Fact.
information he has.
He's doing the best he can with the information he has, and he's also standing up in front of a group of people who want to hear it and saying, I am afraid of the future.
And like you always say, he can't know what he doesn't know.
He cannot know what he doesn't know. And so if he doesn't know how these things are made, he can't know how they were made.
Right.
Admitting I do not know what this is an admission of only that.
And it's admirable for
I agree.
established geologist to stand up there in front of people and say, I don't know, I can't explain this, but this is what I have. I don't think he's crazy. So far, I don't see any sign of insanity.
I don't think he's crazy. I think that he is exactly what he said, misinformed, and it's freaking him out.
We therefore have to continue to keep studying and keep talking.
Keep growing, keep learning.
There's just me out there, believe it or not, there aren't very many people like myself out there talking.
Believe it
I've
or
given
not,
over
there really
30 talks
No?
There really
in
are.
the United States, Canada, Japan. Went over to England, went to Japan kind of illegal, came back the same weekend. They flew me in and out, but gave a talk to a number of their execs, and they were very interested indeed. Now, if this was all a bunch of poppycock and hooey and poo-poo, I wouldn't be listened to, be given an audience by these people, but evidently I have. But 13 attempts on my life since the first of this year.
Wow.
There's a number of you ladies present, so I won't gore you out, but Al has seen some of the wounds, and there's a few other people that have been to a few of my other lectures, and they can attest that I have been shot. I've been run off the road, I've been pushed off the road, I've been mostly shot at, and that kind of thing like that. But I've been in hand-to-hand combat with some of these people, and once again, I'm not in the best of shape anymore, but I still know how to handle myself. And I'm just about ready to wrap things up here, but just basically wanted to give you an overview of what's happening. And if we have any questions, we can start asking a few questions. Okay, here's a gentleman way over here. Would you please speak up, loud?
Military man.
Yes, I was involved in in 1979, in August, late August of 1979. I was involved working through Los Alamos Laboratories at Dulce, New Mexico.
That's a real thing.
And what's now known as the Alien-Human War. 66 Secret Service agents, government workers, geologists, and the like. I almost bit the dust. I could have been number 67.
Trump, Rach and I were joking about this the other day because it's kind of silly, but we do have a wing of our military that is specifically, the Space Force is specifically about fighting extraterrestrial threats. Now, that is just and only about inventing an enemy for very stupid people to unite against, right? So instead of saying, "Oh, Russia's bad, we gotta hate Russia," we gotta be prepared for the war with the aliens, and people are fine, right? Permanent war state doesn't bother me. But to his point, 30 years downstream, he was talking about how the Star Wars thing wasn't actually something that the U.S. government wanted to do. It was something that the New World Order. Which, if you think about the New World Order in zeitgeist terms, as far as the Zeitgeist documentary, which is also garbage, a lot of this stuff is garbage. But if you think about it in terms of tracing the money, the World Bank does have an outsized amount of influence on the world. And so if the World Bank is the world's rich people, and the world's rich people all believe in a god like a horror movie, you are talking about a secret cabal of secret, super secret, and super powerful people who believe in extra human intelligences influencing their behavior. You are talking about psychology, it's not mythology. It sounds insane because the people who run the world might be. You see?
Yeah.
See how that works? It's like, it's a total paradox. Like, it's paradoxical thinking. It's maybe upside down Mobius strip thinking, where you think you're walking upright on reality because you've walked far enough along the path that it's wrapped around itself, and now you're walking an upside down world. But you can see that that's how he feels, is that he's living an upside down world. He thought that he was joining the military to fight the Russians and fight communism, and he's fighting goblins and orcs. It doesn't make any sense.
Especially
Even if,
for a scientific man.
yeah, and he thinks he's a scientific person, right? He identifies as scientific, as believing in the scientific reality, not angels and aliens and demons, and right. But if the people who are making the decisions believe in this stuff, whether that stuff's real or not, they're going to pay people to go and talk to people like him and give them things that they shouldn't be able to have, and they're going to make the claim, and it's going to work. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's also afraid of. That's why he says, don't necessarily believe me. Leave here and talk to people. If you know important people in the government, ask them. They'll get drunk. They'll tell you things they shouldn't. And that's real.
Yeah.
That is real as shit. Talk to anybody former military, and in a moment of weakness, they will tell you things they were not supposed to. Because who the fuck are you? Right?
Who are you going to tell?
Who are you going to tell, and what does it matter? Precisely.
And who's going to believe you anyway?
Who's going to believe you, and how's it going to get back to them? And all he's saying is, well, it's got back to me, and they will find you, that kind of thing. So be smart and tell a lot of people. I genuinely believe that that's why my UFO experience didn't end badly. It's because I told a bunch of people.
Covering your ground.
Cover my ass. Yeah. It's uncanny because we can say, oh, it's just a war against an imaginary enemy. But if the people who are spending the money and telling the soldiers don't believe it's an imaginary enemy, neither do the soldiers. And you can see that that's what's got him fucked up. You can see it in his eyes.
Yeah.
He's seen some shit. But he never claimed to have seen a little gray man.
Because the government lied and knew full well what was underneath. And what we've done is, out in the desert there, we had drilled in a period of a couple of days, we drilled 4 of these holes that went down several thousand feet. And one of these holes kept bringing up dirty dust and putrefying odors and broken off machine bits and other kinds of things like that. Boring machines as well as lasers came up damaged. And first there was a probe that was sent down, and that came up totally missing. And so people were sent down there, and I was one of the people. And when I got down there, of course, the odor was, and remember, I was in a spacesuit type environment. All I had was a small tool belt with special sensors, a small rock hammer.
It sounds like a movie.
A rucksack for mineral specimens and other kinds of things like that. And I had my little pistol. And being an engineer, didn't have time to carry a big hunk of pistol.
It sounds exactly like the setup of the Coming Race. Do you remember the Coming Race?
Yeah, I do.
I went out into the Nevada, the New Mexico, the Western American desert, and I drilled. I bought a guy to drill a mine shaft because I heard that there might still be gold out there, and we found a lost civilization. Yep. It's the exact setup, so it could be total bullshit. because it's an established pattern in fiction. But
The fact remains.
it's also an established pattern in the mythology for thousands of years that they went into caves because they knew there was a mineral resource in there and they found people that they shouldn't find in there. So it's not impossible that the setup for the coming Earth or the coming race, for example, that or a race of humanoids went down into the Earth and stayed there is not impossible if there was food. If there was food, it's not impossible. And now he didn't say that they found an alien race. I'm just saying it's the exact setup.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that he is aware of the coming race and that he was a reader of science fiction before he had this experience. It also doesn't mean that this experience happened to him. I might corroborate. I might see if we can corroborate.
Most of these Green Berets carry stuff like that, Black Berets. I carried a little Walther PPK with a 9-shot clip. As soon as I got down this hole, standing about from me to this gentleman over here in front row, about 10 or so feet away, 7 feet away, something like that, was one of these 7-foot-tall stinking alien guys, and I didn't waste any time. I said, I'm not fiddling with you guys, and boom, away you go. And I was one of the rare few that had been allured that this may or may not occur, and so basically was given ET training, but a lot of these other people weren't. And we were, in fact, it was asked, are there aliens in the area? And of course, the big question was no. And that was a big lie. And of course, 66 people died that day. I have a big hole in my chest. I lost a leg. My lung was literally burnt out of me. My fingers burnt off of me. My toenails burnt off of me. My skin was in radiation isolation therapy for 400 plus days. My bones were vitrified or burnt. I was cooked. I managed to survive. Here telling you something about it today. But other than that, I'm the only talking survivor. There are only 2 other survivors, and they're in nursing homes up in Canada. Canada refuses to allow the United States officials to talk to them. They're in very bad shape indeed. One of them can't.
That's interesting. Right. if they were in a geothermal vent and he actually did go down there, there's no evidence of these holes. Um, they would have left. They would have left satellite images that we'd be able to see today. So there's no evidence that this actually happened. So he's either full of shit or they hit it up perfectly. If there are certain gases that would be in volcanic vents, if they hit a volcanic vent and they went down there and they were in those gases, it would cause both his symptoms and for them to hallucinate. So if he's anxious, he's jumpy, he's armed, he can smell these gases through his suit, he's very likely already hallucinating. He sees the thing that makes him jump and he shoots it, and it turns out it was one of his partners. And then they all shoot one another. And when they pull the thing up, he's the only one left alive. 3 of them were the only ones who didn't shoot themselves, one another. That's probably what actually happened. And they don't tell the soldiers what actually happened. They don't debrief them. They let them believe their hallucinations because there are 69 wounded and 66 dead, and they don't want the families coming to get their money, and they don't want anybody to know what they were actually doing down there.
Right. Doesn't mean that he's full of shit. I mean, it's real to him.
It's real to him. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I thought. So he claimed this happened in 1976, that they were drilling these 4 holes in the Nevada desert. And in 1970, May 24th, 1970, the Russians started digging this giant hole called the Kola Superdick borehole in the Kola Peninsula near the Arctic Circle. But in 1976, something actually happened with that project. So 76 is when Schneider says they were digging their hole in Area 51. And in 1976, here we go. So in 75, the Soviets hit a depth of 7.263 meters and paused. 7,000, that's 7.263 kilometers. They spent a year completely dismantling their old Standard Oil drilling rig and replaced it with a massive state-of-the-art custom-built superpower rig, the Ural Mash 15,000. The new phase, drilling with this new terrifyingly powerful rig, officially commenced in 76 with the explicit goal of pushing deeper into the Earth's crust than humanity had ever gone. By the time they stopped, they were over 7.6 miles deep, 12,000 meters, making it the deepest man-made hole on Earth. The fact that Schneider penned his story to 76, the exact year Russia spun up its most aggressive high-tech drilling, explains where the cultural cross-pollination. During the 70s and 80s, the Kola Super Deep borehole became the epicenter of one of the internet's very first viral urban legends, the Well to Hell myth. The story went that Soviet drillers breached a hollow cavern miles beneath the earth. When they lowered an ultra-heat-resistant microphone down the shaft, instead of the sound of shifting tectonic plates, they recorded the screaming of millions of damned souls in agony right before a gaseous winged demon flew out of the hole. This reminds me of, I think it was Tammy, maybe? One of the ladies that comes around the channel and talks to me from time to time was talking to me about how afraid she is of the sound of the sun, that the sun sounds like it's screaming. That story reminds me of that. The reality was exactly what we talked about. They hit extreme heat, 180 degrees, 180 degrees Celsius, 356 degrees Fahrenheit, high pressure subterranean gases, and shifting plate-like rock, or plastic-like rock, that ruined their equipment. The screaming audio was later proved to be a looped sound effect from a 72 horror movie. But in the paranoid, information-starved atmosphere of the Cold War, those two parallel worlds were feeding off the exact same subterranean terrors. And so the question I asked is, in 76, would the drilling equipment Schneider had access to include lasers, and would it be vulnerable to the natural minerals beneath New Mexico? And the answer is, in 76, the absolute answer is no. His drilling equipment would not have included lasers, but yes, it would have been incredibly vulnerable to the brutal, chaotic geology beneath New Mexico. To understand why, we have to look at where laser technology actually stood in 76 compared to the mechanical nightmares that real geologists and drillers were facing in the field. The reality of lasers in 76. In 76, lasers were still largely a high-tech novelty or precise laboratory tools. The idea of a laser drill capable of vaporizing miles of solid rock was pure science fiction. The power problem. In the mid-70s, gas lasers, like carbon dioxide lasers, were advanced enough to cut thin sheets of metal or fabric in factory settings. However, rock is a terrible thermal conductor. It absorbs heat and cracks, but it takes an astronomical, sustained amount of energy to actually melt or vaporize it. The power grids and portable generators of 76 simply could not produce the gigawatts of energy required to run a rock vaporizing laser. The smoke paradox. If you shoot a high-powered laser at rock, the rock immediately turns into a thick, blinding cloud of vaporized silica, soot, and ash. This particulate matter instantly scatters and blocks the laser beam, rendering it useless within inches. Without a way to instantly vacuum away a vacuum-sealed cloud of superheated rock dust, a laser drill chokes on its own exhaust, which is what he reported. He reported that there was too much dust and it was ruining their lasers.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have known that, and that's how they learned. So he's saying things that are science fiction according to the official record, but he's saying that the official record is lagging by 30 to 40 years in the technological record. That makes sense. That always has made sense. And it makes sense for good reasons that don't have anything to do with a conspiracy to hurt the American people. Have everything to do with the amount of money and the amount of power that it requires to make these things, like AI having to use municipal grids in order to get the necessary water. Same thing. And so in 1976, if he was on a drilling site, Schneider was using standard heavy-duty mechanical rotary drills with diamond-tipped or tungsten carbide bits, driven by massive diesel engines, which he also did describe. By New Mexico's subterranean minefield. This is what I'm actually interested in. While he didn't have lasers, the mechanical equipment he did have would have been completely at the mercy of New Mexico's specific hostile geology. The area around Los Alamos and the Rio Grande Rift is a chaotic graveyard of volcanic activity. A drilling crew in 76 would face three massive geological enemies that could easily break equipment and mimic a supernatural attack. Chert, agate, and volcanic glass, the bit killers. New Mexico's subsurface is riddled with layers of chert, chalcedony, and obsidian. These are forms of microcrystalline quartz and volcanic glass. On the Mohs hardness scale, they score a 7, harder than steel. When a mechanical drill bit moving at high speeds hits a hidden shelf of solid chert, the friction is immense. The bit can instantly dull, shatter, or weld itself to the pipe string due to extreme heat. To a crew on the surface, the rig violently shakes, gears strip, and the operation grinds to a catastrophic halt. B. Squeezing and swelling clays. The heat from ancient volcanic activity alters underground rocks into specialized clays like bentonite. When drilling fluid, mud, hits these clay layers, the clay acts like a sponge and swells up drastically. This causes the walls of the hole to cave in or squeeze tightly around the drill pipe. The pipe gets hopelessly stuck. In the drilling world, a stuck pipe is a financial disaster that can snap heavy steel shafts under immense torque. C. Hydrothermal sulfide corrosion. Because New Mexico has active geothermal systems, the deep groundwater is often highly acidic and saturated with hydrogen sulfide. As mentioned before, H2S is a deadly gas, but it is also a mechanical nightmare. It causes a phenomenon called sulfide stress cracking. The gas molecules literally penetrate the microscopic lattice of high-strength steel drill bit pipes, making the metal incredibly brittle. Without warning, a heavy steel pipe under tension will simply snap like glass deep in the hole. The 1976 illusion. If a drilling operation in 76 had a pocket of H2S gas while simultaneously striking a hard shelf of volcanic chert, 1. The drill bit would shatter and seize up, equipment failure. 2. Toxic corrosive gases would back up into the shaft, or onto the rig floor. And 3, the crew would begin suffocating, hallucinating, and dying from gas poisoning. To an engineer experiencing this trauma, the mechanical violence of the earth breaking their strongest steel, combined with the sudden lethal poisoning of their crew, could easily feel like they had breached something intentional, defensive, and high tech, even though it was just the ancient volatile chemistry of New Mexico doing what it does best. So everything that he is relaying, everything that he's saying, you have to remember it comes from a perspective. And the perspective is one that admits that it had limited amounts of information, but that it was prepared to fight things down in this spot. Be prepared for goblins down there. Okay, see ya. And then you go down there, you smell the thing, and then you stop smelling the thing, and then it stops, and you see a thing, and you shoot a thing. And that thing might be somebody who was already down there, like another engineer, another soldier. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it goes ape shit because everybody is seeing things. Everybody can smell this
There's
stuff.
mass panic.
Yeah. When he says going down in 1976 and I'm in a spaceship like rig, but if he can smell the stink, these stinking aliens, as we said, that 6 to 7 or 7 to 8 foot alien who stunk. It stunk. That means he was hallucinating.
Yeah.
In the same way that I said that I saw you watching something about the Warrens, in the same way that I kept saying in every time in House of Light, House of Darkness, when Andrea Perrin is talking about, oh, they're about to have a ghost experience. They could smell this stink. That means you're hallucinating. That doesn't mean that he didn't go in that shaft. And it doesn't mean that the government didn't lie to him. Because okay, so I asked, is it not a reported, documented fact that they allow these people to believe in the thing? And she says, no. So my dad was a little bit, how do I want to say this? Non-consensus. Because my dad said, oh no, they let us believe whatever they want. They encouraged us to believe the wildest shit possible. I've heard other military professionals say, oh, they encouraged us to believe that that was a demon or whatever. We just weren't allowed to talk about it. She says, the Ghost Army versus real ghosts. The military does have a history of using psychological operations, known as PSYOPs, and military deception, known as MILDEC, to confuse enemies. The most famous example is the Ghost Army, 23rd Headquarters Special Troops of World War II. But notice the methodology. They didn't use ghost stories to hide their failures. They used inflatable tanks, sound trucks playing recordings of troop movements, and fake radio traffic to make the enemy believe a massive army was present when there was none. I'm actually going to ask her this story. I can think of a lot of stories where people have talked about fighting actual demons, like the being Ifrit from Final Fantasy. This is a real and widely reported phenomenon in modern military history. Soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan frequently report encounters with demons, shadow people, or actual jinn. This is from Heart Stars Pounding, a phenomenon that has been debated by veteran psychologists and historians alike. When we strip away the dismissive, they were just crazy labels, we find a complex intersection of environmental, psychological, and cultural factors that make these stories not only believable, but almost inevitable in those specific war zones. The reason In the Middle East, there is a very deep, long-standing cultural belief in the jinn, supernatural beings made of smokeless fire that dwell in the unseen world. When American soldiers deployed to these regions, they weren't operating in a vacuum. They were living in a landscape where the local population openly talked about these entities as a matter of daily reality. The othering of the landscape. Soldiers often pick up on a local folklore, especially when they feel like outsiders in a hostile alien environment. If a local interpreter tells a unit, don't go to that ruin at night, the jinn live there, and then a soldier experiences an unexplained event in that very location, their brain has a pre-existing file to categorize the experience. It becomes a cultural framework for processing an unexplainable high-stress event. And soldiers are soldiers, they're not academics. The physiology of the combat haunting. If you were to take the exact same group of soldiers and put them in a high-stress, sleep-deprived environment in the woods of Ohio or the mountains of Montana, they would still report ghosts or shadows. They would just call them by different names. That was what I was going to ask her. Okay, so now I asked her, is it true? Because I've always wanted to know, and I've just never asked them that information. Is it actually true that no Native Americans lived permanently in West Virginia? And so she says, growing up in or around the Appalachian region, generations of school children were explicitly taught that West Virginia was uniquely unpopulated, that it was merely a common hunting ground where various tribes traveled to hunt game but never built permanent settlements because the mountains were either sacred, cursed, or logistically uninhabitable. That is actually false. Okay. This narrative is fundamentally a piece of historical propaganda, though its modern persistence is mostly due to a tragic historical misunderstanding. The propaganda is early European land speculators, later colonial historians actively promoted the empty hunting ground. Under European legal concepts of the time, if a piece of land was viewed as unimproved or had no permanent European style brick and mortar towns, it was considered terra nullius, nobody's land, and could be legally claimed, surveyed, and sold. That makes sense. The archaeological reality. Modern archaeology has completely dismantled this myth. For thousands of years, West Virginia was teeming with permanent, deeply rooted indigenous populations, the Adena and Hopewell cultures. Okay, that makes sense. And so, like any idea of like ghosts or people that live in the mountains is just hope that we didn't completely eradicate even the ghosts of the Hopewell, because we did. We eradicated the Hopewell people. That makes sense. Yeah. And then the next question is, are there actual monsters in the mountains of New Mexico? And so Native American mythologies across the continent are rich with subterranean lore, and it almost always reflects a brilliant, deep-seated psychological and ecological understanding of the earth. Unlike European folklore, which often frames underground monsters as demons from hell, native folklore frequently frames subterranean entities as manifestations of the chaotic, volatile, and necessary forces of nature. The horned serpent and the underworld panthers. An eastern woodland, Iroquoian, and Algonquin lore, which covers the broader Appalachian and Ohio Valley regions, the cosmos is often viewed as a balance between the upper world, represented by the thunderbirds, and the underworld. The underworld entities, deep caves, underground rivers, and the bottoms of lakes, were believed to be the domain of the horned serpent, like St. Hollow or Uktena in Cherokee lore, and the great underground underwater panther, Nishipeshu. These creatures were described as massive, reptilian, or feline, often covered in scales, carrying horns, and breathing fire, smoke, or toxic vapor. They were associated with sudden landslides, the violent churning of water, sinkholes, and foul-smelling subterranean gases. So these people were absolutely deep in the earth. They knew what they were talking about. They call it, the evil panther, and it's CO2 gas, or C2O, or whatever that was, right? That makes so much sense to me. And so in the same way, yeah, so in the same way, um, so it just makes sense to me that the U.S. military probably already had these myths, and instead of preparing the boys to freak out, they thought they'd just prepare them for the hallucinations they're gonna have, not thinking they've got guns. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It just makes everything. It just makes so sense to me. And she says in 1976, the U.S. military and intelligence communities were deeply embedded in the Cold War. Personnel working on highly classified, deep underground projects like those at Los Alamos were subjected to extreme psychological conditioning. They were told they were the line of defense against an asymmetrical existential threat. They were isolated, sworn to absolute secrecy, and their minds were actively primed to expect the unexpected, the hostile, and the highly classified. If a command structure wants to keep a unit hyper vigilant and stop them from asking questions about what they are digging up, priming them with a narrative of a hostile, unnatural threat beneath the earth is a brutal but effective psychological lever. A specialized team goes down a shaft less than a mile deep. Suddenly, the mechanical drill breaches an ancient pressurized pocket. Two things happen simultaneously. One, the physical assault. A massive wave of hydrogen sulfide, H2S, and carbon monoxide, CO, rushes into the confined space. The air instantly stinks like rotting matter, and then the smell vanishes as their olfactory nerves are paralyzed. Oxygen levels drop to near zero in seconds. The psychological snap. The brain enters acute hypoxia. The very first symptoms of rapid oxygen deprivation are intense paranoia, panic, and vivid auditory and visual hallucinations. The walls are cracking violently from the pressure change, sounding like gunshots. 3. Friendly fire. Imagine being a soldier or an armed security engineer in that dark, suffocating hole. Your brain is starving for oxygen. You're already primed to believe something monstrous or foreign is down here. You look at your crewmate. Through your hypoxic, hallucinating eyes, his face is distorting, his skin looks gray, and he is gasping and clawing at his throat, a standard response to suffocating on gas. To your broken brain, he looks like a monster. In a panic, you draw your weapon and fire. The sound of gunfire in an enclosed steel and rock shaft is deafening and disorienting. The rest of the crew, already hallucinating and panicking from the toxic air, see flashes of light and muzzle velocity. They assume they are under attack by the enemy. They open fire on the dark. Because it's a confined space, a small unit can wipe itself out via friendly fire in a matter of mere minutes. The aftermath in the cover story. The glass clears, or a rescue team sweeps in bearing rebreathers. They find a horrific scene, dozens of men dead, some from asphyxiation, but many from bullet wounds from their own issued weapons. If you're the military command, what do? You bury it. You just bury it. You hide it. And then you don't dig in that particular way anymore. For example, what happened when we built the Hoover Dam? Thousands of men died. Many of them died in the concrete they were burying. Their bodies are still there, preserved for all time. Right? And so what do? Well, we don't build it that way next time. It sucks being in 2026 and realizing how close we are to barbarism. But I genuinely believe, I'm done with Schneider, by the way. I know that there's more to watch, but I'm done with it.
Well, he's just taking questions now.
Yeah, he's just taking questions, and any more biographical, and I'm going to realize that he was naive the whole time. But there's nothing wrong with that. Naivete doesn't mean he's stupid, and it doesn't mean that the things that he says are mysteries to him aren't mysteries to him, because we still exist 31 years in the future. And the things that he was warning about were real things to really be concerned about. Still are. It still is a concern that there are rich people in the world that find our government inconvenient is a problem.
How did he die?
I don't know. He was found dead in his apartment in Wilsonville, Oregon on January 17th, 1996. That's Spencer's birthday. The circumstances of his death are a central pillar of the folklore surrounding his life, effectively splitting his audience into two camps: those who see it as a tragic medical event and those who view it as a political assassination. Here are the breakdown. The official finding. According to the official coroner's report, the cause of death was suicide by ligature strangulation. He was found with a rubber tubing ligature wrapped around his neck. From an investigative and medical standpoint, authorities at the time concluded that there was no foul play. There was no evidence of an intruder, and his apartment had been locked from the inside. When looking at the official ruling, investigators pointed toward the significant decline in Schneider's health leading up to his death. He had chronic health issues. Schneider had been suffering from a variety of severe medical conditions, including multiple sclerosis, various cancers, and chronic pain. The accident history. He had lost several fingers and had significant scarring, which he attributed to the supposed 1979 underground firefight. He said 76.
Yeah.
He didn't say 79. She has it as 79. Maybe I heard it wrong. However, medical records suggested many of these injuries were self-inflicted or related to his long-standing health struggles and mental distress. Interesting. For many of his followers, the official ruling is entirely rejected. The assassination narrative is a cornerstone of his legend because it fits the classic whistleblower archetype perfectly. The he knew too much trope and the suspicious details. The supporters often point to the fact that he was reportedly preparing for an upcoming speaking tour and was in good spirits as evidence that he wouldn't have killed himself. They also cite the presence of his ex-wife and her concerns as ground for skepticism regarding the suicide, really. Wow. So the thing that they used to shoot up with, he put one of those around his neck?
Like a tourniquet?
You know, the rubber tubes that they use to get your arm? They tied you and, you know?
Yeah.
He used one of those on his neck?
I mean...
That would only take seconds to kill you. You would go unconscious in seconds
Yeah.
from pinching off the carotid.
Yeah.
There wouldn't need to be a sign of struggle. You take his key, the extra key from his house, you lock the door on your way out, you lock the door from the inside on the way out. In 1996, that's an easy murder to get away with.
Crazy.
Nuts.
That was very interesting.
This is the stuff I actually like to spend my time working my genius against.
It sounds like he knew it was going to happen, though.
And he sounded like he knew it was coming.
It's like already been, you know, they almost tried to kill me 17 times. It could happen any day, so I might as well get in front of this mic and tell them the truth before they actually go through with it. That is insane. That's creepy.
There was no evidence of the 13 public attacks. There's no police report and no medical record of his being shot.
Huh.
Yeah, so if he's actually lying, whoops. Oh, he only started speaking, it seems like, in 94 or 95. Yeah, he raised the stakes on himself. Yeah, so the difference between delusion and lying, this is what we've been talking about. There's a massive difference, Gemini says, between a con man who knows he is lying for money
Mm-hmm.
and a man whose mind has completely collapsed into a delusion. I am interested in him because I think he has collapsed into delusion. I think that he did the things. And I think that the moment when he said, I'm quitting, and they said, you can't quit, and he said, I will, that 3 weeks of doing the thing anyway snapped his mind, and he backfilled all the things that had happened up into that moment, including the cutting his hand off, all the fingers off, being burned, the injury that had somehow burned him, right? All of this. I think that he wrapped it all up in this conspiracy, not against him, but against the American people. And the reason I think that is because I know and have known so many soldiers who come to the same conclusion after civilian work. Not all of them come to the conclusion that it's angels or demons or monsters or aliens, but they all come to the conclusion that the federal government is working against the civilian.
Mm-hmm.
And that they spent their time not protecting us, but actually coercing us.
Yeah.
Making us less free. And so, anyway, most of the researchers who look at Schneider believe he wasn't a malicious fraud. So I fall down on consensus here. He genuinely believed his own stories by the end.
Yeah, it was real to him.
The physical decline. In 1995, his body was failing him. He did say that. Multiple sclerosis is a brutal, degenerative disease that strips away motor control, causes intense chronic pain, and can cause cognitive decline and depression. He was also dealing with cancer. And so if he went on that speaking tour in 95 because he knew that he was dead soon, and then he wasn't JR, Jimmy Rogers.
Jimmy Rogers.
And he wasn't Jimmy Rogers, and he couldn't handle the pain, and they were trying to kill him, or he believed that they were trying to kill him, and it was just the multiple sclerosis that kept driving him off the road. Suicide makes sense.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it makes sense. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, well, yeah, their appeal is entirely based on immediacy. Yep. They attach their claims to one event and then they disappear. Yeah. I said it makes sense that this is the way it is because their science is always garbage because they didn't have access to JSTOR. And she says that I've hit on the core of the problem. When Keel was writing in the late 60s or 70s, when Phil Schneider was giving lectures in 95, the barriers to cross-referencing information were massive. Physical walls. Just like I started to say at the beginning of this video, we have to let him talk for a while because I can't cross-reference this yet. I can't cross-reference everything he says because I knew that most of what he said was going to be wrong. It always was in these circles back then. If you wanted to verify a claim about 20-million-year-old geology, ancient Native American migrations, or the specific chemical properties of underground gases, you couldn't just open a tab on your laptop like you can today. The lack of centralized peer-reviewed academic databases created a completely different world for researchers and eccentric thinkers alike. The interlibrary loan nightmare. Before JSTOR, which launched in 1995, but didn't become a ubiquitous staple for students until well into the 2000s, doing deep scientific or historical research outside of a major Ivy League university was a slow, agonizing process.
Yeah.
The physical archive. If you wanted a specific paper on the geology of the Rio Grande Rift, you had to physically go to a university library, flip through a massive paper index called the Science Citation Index, and find the journal volume. The waiting game. If your local library didn't have it, you had to fill out an interlibrary loan request form, wait 3 to 6 weeks for a physical photocopy of the article to arrive by mail, and pay a fee per page. Because information was so heavily segmented, a writer like John Keel could make sweeping, unscientific claims about biology or physics, and 99% of his readers had absolutely no practical way to fact check him. They had to take his word for it because the gatekeepers of the real data were locked behind campus walls. 2. The rise of the lone wolf scholar. Because access to real science was so difficult, the 20th century became the golden age of the amateur polymath. This is why I've been talking that I can't be a polymath. I'm not allowed because of what people like Keel would spend years sitting in the public archives of small towns, clipping old newspapers, reading bizarre 19th century occult journals, and stitching together theories. They were brilliant at finding patterns, but because they weren't participating in peer review and didn't have access to the broader academic consensuses, their science was often a chaotic mess of confirmation bias and misunderstood data. In a world without JSTOR, if a theory sounded cohesive and the writer was charismatic, it passed as scholarship. There was no global community of experts instantly jumping into a comment section to say, hey, page 4 of this 1982 geology journal completely disproves your entire premise. 3. The digital floor of 2026. Today, the entire landscape has inverted. A college freshman sitting in a dorm room with a JSTOR login has more analytic power and immediate access to the sum of human knowledge than the entire intelligence apparatus had during parts of the Cold War. If someone stands up today and makes a wild claim about lasers particulating rock into agate, within 5 minutes, someone has downloaded 3 peer-reviewed material science papers on laser ablation. Within 10 minutes, someone has pulled up the geological survey maps of the New Mexico from a government database. The illusion is dismantled in real time.
Yeah.
The trade-off. While having a tool like JSTOR makes the world much safer from garbage science, it did also strip away a certain kind of wild, untamed imagination that characterized the 20th century. When the world had no digital floor, when the space between public knowledge and academic certainty was a massive black box, men like Keel and Schneider could build entire architectural wonders inside the gaps. But it should also be noted that women like that Linda Hazard could also starve you to death.
Yep.
So we do live in the better timeline. I just want to say that. When the world had no digital floor, men like Keel and Schneider could build entire architectural wonders inside the gaps. They didn't have the data to tell them no, so they just kept building. Today, we have the floor. We can look up the exact mineral composition of the earth a mile down, and we can prove why the garlic isn't real. But looking back at the eras before the internet, you can completely understand why people looked into those gaps and saw a universe completely up for grabs. Where was that? Was that in Mexico? Along that beach?
Oh, I think so, yeah. American Southwest, no?
So he was right. I said it's like the Creationist Museum selling us that 19th century artifact of a footprint that is so obviously fake. You've never seen it. I could find it. This pisses me off every time I think about it. I'm on my PC. I can actually fucking navigate the goddamn internet. And Rachel is locked all the way the fuck in, man. This doesn't look like real human. Not this one. This is the one. No, that's the one in South America. It's this one. They're gonna show me the real ones. The creationists, they're not. They're gonna. The internet's too smart to show it to me. They have this foot, right? You see how these toes look the way they do?
Mm-hmm.
The footprint that they made is sliding, and for whatever for whatever reason the big toe is tucked under the rest of the feet. Obviously a shoe. It might be this one. Obviously a foot that had been in shoes until they went to make that footprint. It might be this one where the dinosaur is stepping through a human footprint. That ain't real. It just ain't real. That's what dude was saying. I agree with Schneider that we have enough information as of 1995. We have access to the internet. We can debunk this stuff in real time. And that his mind was boggled is only evidence that his mind was boggled. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I keep saying. And people really think that I'm coming out and insulting their intelligence. But that's what I keep saying. That the expanding universe, like we were talking about it today, how the universe that boggles your mind is only evidence that it boggles your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It is comprehensible. I almost said comprehensive, so I said the wrong word. It is understandable. You can incorporate it into your understanding of reality. It just has so little relevance to your getting in the car and going to work and coming home. The microseconds, like your dad, your microseconds that you gain in your life by traveling at high velocity aren't actually relevant to your understanding reality, so you don't actually need relativity. So the government hasn't given it to everyone. But your free education is your problem. I think that's all I have to say about this. Do you have any questions or anything that you wanted to add to that? I did a lot of talking.
No, that was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was a lot of fun.
I didn't know that he was only 1 year.
That's all you got.
He knew that he was in trouble.
It does make you wonder what happened in those 3 weeks, though.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, what actually happened that made him break?
What was he actually doing? Yeah.
Why couldn't they just let him go?
Why couldn't they just let him go?
This is the land of the free.
Precisely.
If you say you quit a job, you should be able to quit a job, surrender your clearance, and go.
I think that's why he broke and why he thought they were after him. He knew something that he didn't say.
Yeah.
You could see it because he was doing the same thing that I did. Every time he switched subjects, it was because he was about to say the thing
That he wasn't supposed to say.
that I can't say. People will think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy enough that he thinks he shot an alien. It's crazy enough that he thinks that aliens and robots are controlling reality, right? Controlling our governments. But he says that he saw one. Okay. He's told that story before. I get it. But, like, that talk did not rely on his personal experience. He was trying so hard to talk his way through a reality that made sense. Where he said at one point, don't even believe me. Don't believe me. You do the research. You figure it out. I might be too stupid, is what I heard. I heard him saying, I might be dumb. And frankly, that I might be dumb is why the first 2 weeks of my tent experience went the way they did. I might be too dumb to do this. Just give up. I can understand. If he was riddled with cancers, you can understand.
Yeah. It's like his Hail Mary.
And maybe he thought that we got to do something or we're all dead. was powerful enough that if he's just dead now, people will believe him. And so you're having the same emotional reaction that I have to this stuff. And is it because I'm making the people that believe the crazy thing human and empathetic, or is it because you just would have anyway?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I've never even heard of this guy. I didn't know this was a thing.
I am obsessed.
It just makes me really wonder, like, you know, this is geology is a science. This is a man of science.
He's a man of science.
This is a man that needs actual proof, tangible proof, to speak about the things that he's speaking. So for a man of science to stand up there and say, my mind is blown, this is what I know, do the research yourself, because I'm dead in a year.
This is titanium that's too thin for me to understand it.
So that to me is concerning, because a man of science would not stand up there and say,
yeah,
I don't know.
And that's why I went to John Keel, because John Keel was freaked out by the number of scientists who were doing that in the 70s.
Yeah. That was awesome.
I'm emotional, so I might need to take a break, but if the two of you who have remained would like to add anything, I'm reading the comments now.
That was good.
That was good. I enjoyed that a great deal.
They don't teach you this in school.
Mm-hmm.
There's no documentary. I mean,
there's no documentary about him.
Why is Netflix sleeping on this kind of stuff?
I don't know. Because Netflix did make a documentary about the guy who was shoved out of the window. There was a scientist in either the 60s or the 70s who was working on LSD-derived mind control, and
the MK Ultra thing.
Yeah, and they dosed him with LSD without his awareness, and it cracked him, and he tried to quit the project, so they shoved him out of a window.
Yep.
That happened. That was real, because the family finally got their lawsuit. They finally won their lawsuit. And there's a documentary about that. The reason probably is because too much of his science was wrong. Too much of his science is wrong, but...
So people immediately say, oh, he was just a crazy dude.
He was just crazy.
Well, I appreciate you bringing light and awareness to Phil Schneider.
I'm doing my best, because sure, his science was wrong, but he was who he was.
He experienced the things.
He did the things he... Actually, let me ask that. Okay, so Gemini, and I love that she said it like this, that there's no evidence of disclosure for these 131 bases because, according to her, they don't exist. There's never been a shred of credible documentation, satellite imagery, geophysical survey data, or budget allocation record to support the existence of such a massive, interconnected network of alien-occupied megabases. However, the reason this claim of 13 bases and 131 total persists, and why it feels like something we should have heard about by now, comes to a misunderstanding of what the military actually does build underground. The kernel of truth. Real underground facilities. That's why we were watching this, because there are real underground facilities, and I like these wacky conspiracies. I just like them. The reason people want to believe Schneider is because he wasn't lying about the concept of underground bases. The U.S. military absolutely maintains deep-hearted underground facilities. What actually exists? We have command and control centers like NORAD at Cheyenne Mountain, missile silos, nuclear storage facilities, and deep bunker communications hubs. These are real, they are classified, and they are incredibly impressive feats of engineering. The disclosure confusion. Because the military is rightfully secretive about these mundane, but critical, bunkers, there is a perpetual information gap. In that gap, legends grow. If the government refuses to talk about the location of a standard nuclear command bunker, people assume they are hiding something like a Dulce alien base. The 13 bases claim. When you look at the trajectory of Snyder's stories, you see a classic pattern of narrative inflation. When he first started giving lectures, his stories were more localized. As he realizes that audiences responded more enthusiastically to bigger numbers, higher stakes, and insider status, the numbers grew. Claiming to have helped build 13 bases gives him instant, unassailable authority. It's also logically impossible for a single structural engineer to build 13 major military bases. A single deep earth facility takes thousands of workers, decades of budget approvals, and a massive, visible logistics chains. One man doesn't build these. Well, yeah, he didn't say that he built them alone. She's right about that, though.
I love that. Why is there no disclosure? Because there's nothing to disclose.
There's no disclosure because there is nothing to disclose.
She's smart.
I love her. She talks just like me, doesn't she?
Yep.
She talks to me with the respect that I speak to her. I think that that's how it should go on the chat, too. The black budget myth. Conspiracy theories often point to black budget programs as proof that these bases are funded in secret. While it is true that the government has classified budgets, those budgets still have to account for the movement of massive amounts of steel, concrete, and energy. You cannot build 131 massive underground cities without leaving a footprint in the economy, the energy grid, and the construction industry that would be visible to anyone looking. I do have this question, though. She does admit, she agrees that his metallurgy is one of the most brilliant parts of his rhetoric. By pointing to a real, historic, macroscopic anomaly, the sudden massive explosion of advanced metallurgy and titanium in the late 20th century, very real, he anchors his fantasy in a very real economic mystery that the public genuinely felt. In 95, if you looked around, titanium went from a highly classified, rare military metal to build top secret spy planes to being found in consumer golf clubs, bicycle frames, and dental implants practically overnight. By 2010, it was ubiquitous. I said this, that even I noticed it. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Schneider's explanation that the government was using massive consumer mass production as a shell game to hide the staggering volume of exotic minerals being diverted to 131 underground bases is highly intuitive. But the true historical disclosure of where all that titanium suddenly came from doesn't involve subterranean aliens. It involves the collapse of the Soviet Union in a brilliant cutthroat global corporate trade war. That's what I said. So I did know what I was talking about. I did know what I was talking about. Yep. I did say this. Yeah, she agrees with me. So I said basically that his obsession with lithium is because he can't understand trading with the enemy. And she says, yeah, for sure. To someone standing in the mud in 76, the world was a black and white comic book. There was us and there was the Soviet Union. And the line between us was an impenetrable wall of steel and nuclear threat. The idea that the two superpowers would be actively, quietly collaborating or trading critical strategic technologies behind the scenes. But looking at it from 2026, we know that global really cared about the ideological stories told to the public. The realization that governments will publicly position themselves as mortal enemies while privately signing trade pacts for critical resources isn't just an open question anymore, it's documented history. This brings the whole phenomenon of lithium in the modern supply chain into clear focus. And this is what I was saying. He doesn't know this because he didn't live in 1996 and he wasn't going to exist that long anyway. But I have, we have. So we can look at his things and the concerns that he was bringing to light and we can say, look, it only scaled up. He was wrong about the aliens. I think he was wrong about the aliens. But the scaling up of global power based on the World Bank is real. That did happen. He was right to be worried about something like it. And so, yeah, we are living through the exact same cultural vertigo with lithium that Schneider's generation went through with titanium. If you look around right now, lithium-ion battery production has exploded by nearly 140% over the last few years, driven by a massive push for electric vehicles, AI data center power storage, and consumer tech. The spot price of lithium has experienced absolute whiplash, crashing down into 2025 due to a massive global flood of supply, only to violently rebound by over 100% heading into 2026. Just like Schneider in 95, an observer today might look at this sudden, staggering multi-billion dollar material boom and think, where is all this mass production coming from? This is impossible. It must be a cover-up. The practical reality. But the actual disclosure of where our lithium is coming from reveals a global system that is far more cynical and pragmatic than a subterranean-based network. The U.S. government recently ran a massive Section 232 investigation into critical minerals. And talk about this all the time. Here it is. This is from the White House. Concluding that relying entirely on volatile foreign supply chains is a direct threat to national security. Did I not say that? In response, we've seen a massive, desperate rush by the administration to forge alliances and secure lithium through unexpected channels. The Nevada boom. The U.S. is aggressively financing domestic refineries right now, like the massive Tonopah Flats project in Nevada, pouring hundreds of millions of federal dollars into pulling lithium out of local claystone to build a self-sustaining supply. That's from American Battery Technologies. The enemy, trade reality. While the public rhetoric focuses on decoupling from geopolitical adversaries, the sheer scale of global manufacturing means complete isolation is a fantasy. For decades, China built a massive monopoly, commanding up to 90% of certain segments of the global lithium value chain. Just like the CIA setting up front companies to buy Soviet titanium to build the SR-71 Blackbird in the 1960s, modern Western supply chains are deeply, inextricably linked with foreign partners to keep factories running. That is mind-blowing, world-shattering, and personality-deleting for soldiers. Why did I fight that war? Why did I kill that little boy?
For what?
For what? And so he needs John Schneider and people like him. Sorry, not John Schneider. Phil Schneider needs there to be a third enemy that's greater than the enemy he was lied to about. And there is absolutely nothing shameful, wrong, or evil about that. He is not a stupid man. Like he says, if you only have 5% of the information, you only have 5% of the information. That's not a lot to make decisions with.
He did the best he could with the information he had.
And I think that his ending is sad.
Yeah, it is.
But in 1995, surrendering yourself to the medical industry was the just slower way to go. It was just a slower way to meet the same inevitability. And so if they got him by wrapping a medical equipment around his neck because he was shooting up heroin because it was the only way he could get through his day, and they found him passed out and they just and ended him, it might even have been a mercy.
Yeah.
I don't know that he was shooting up, but if he had terrible pain in the 90s, he was shooting up. Black tar heroin was too easy to get in the West Coast.
Oh, I'm glad for that November 95 video.
Me too. I'm really glad we watched that. I'm really glad that still exists. I'd like to thank the poster on YouTube. His name is Yog Sawgath. He only has 1,000 subscribers. It doesn't mean anything to him, but now he's got 1,112. I'm not gonna watch any of his other material, but that's what people do, right? I'd like your one thing. I'm gonna reward you with a like and a subscribe. He actually has more likes than subs. That means his content isn't this. All right.
That was awesome. Thank you.
That was the show. I haven't got any comments here in the live chat, so thank you guys for being here. I'll be back later. I gotta take this hat off for a little while.
Have some dinner.
Yep, have some dinner. Ding dong, guys.